Thank you for joining us, and welcome to another edition of Answers Network. I'm your host, Alan Cardoza, and for those of you that have been listening, sending in questions and comments, thank you so much. And please continue to help spread the word that this show brings on special guests that can inspire, educate, and in some cases entertain, while bringing answers and options to making our lives happier, healthier, and more successful. And remember, if you can't listen live, go to our website at answers.network and browse through a variety of heartfelt topics. I believe that you will find something that will brighten any day. I also have a favor to ask. Please forward one of our shows to your social media group and to someone you know who can benefit from a particular subject. This is one powerful way that we can make a positive influence in the world together. Now, this is something that our guest today, I believe, has made a career of. Stephen G. Post, PhD, is the best-selling author of Why Good Things Happen to Good People and How to Live a Longer, Happier, Healthier Life by the Simple Act of Giving. Now, the British Medical Journal designated Stephen's book, The Moral Challenge of Alzheimer's Disease, as a medical classic of the 20th century. In 2001, Dr. Post founded the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, which researches and distributes knowledge on kindness, giving, and spirituality. He's a frequent contributor to major magazines and newspapers, including the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and Time Magazine. And he's appeared on many national television programs as well. Dr. Post is the founder and director of the Stony Brook Center for Medical Humanities, Compassion Care, and Bioethics. A true leader in medicine, research, and religion, Dr. Post's latest book is a meditation on the meaning of life and the importance of spirituality. It's entitled God and Love on Route 80, Hidden Mystery of Hidden Connectedness, and it describes how an excessive focus on materialism and the neglect of spiritual values such as love, compassion, and generosity have prevented us from realizing our potential as a human society. Stephen, welcome to Answers Network.
Thank you, Alan. It's a delight, and I'm looking forward to this. It's very exciting.
Well, I've been reading your book all weekend. I love it. I highly recommend it to everybody, and not just this one, because after starting to read this, I started looking back at some of your other books, and that's why I said, you've made a career at trying to make life better for all of us, and for that I truly thank you. I wish that there were many more people that had the focus that you have.
I've been very fortunate. I've also stayed busy working as a med school professor for about 40 years at some great places. So I really owe a lot to the people around me.
Well, as I was reading the book, I was jotting down some notes, some questions and in some cases you answer it in the book. In other cases, I thought, oh, what a great question. So let me ask some of these things so that our listeners can get an idea, or viewers can get an idea of the types of things that you're speaking about. But one of the thoughts that came to mind is that when you talk about divine love, what is your definition, or what do you believe people mean when they report a spiritual experience that they call divine love?
Fair enough. That's a good place to start. Well, love is love. I like to use a definition from a psychiatrist once at the University of Chicago. And it's a very interesting definition because it's so everyday. When the happiness and the security of another is as real to you as your own, and sometimes more so, you love that person. And that works, whether you're looking at a baby in a crib as a parent or a grandparent, or you're having a cup of coffee with an old friend who's had some hard times, whether you're trying to bring a little mirth into a person's life, that works. It doesn't use a lot of esoteric ancient language. It's just pretty much simple, everyday, common sense. And The problem is that human love has lots of limits. It's very inefficient. It can be unwise. It can be myopic, right? The nearest matter a lot, but the neediest don't. It can be impure. It can reverse itself. It can be uneven. So there's a kind of love in the universe that many spiritual traditions have shared an understanding of, but in different language games. And that is to say that there is an ultimate reality. I like that language. An ultimate reality of, call it pure, unlimited love. I actually borrowed that particular phrase from Sir John Templeton, who was one of my benefactors. But a pure, unlimited love. And this is, as he would often say, not simply human love, but really the love that made the universe, the love that made humans, and that underlies all of reality as a kind of energy of original mind and original heart. And these are the kinds of things that some of the very great physicists have discussed at times. And all the mystics, the great mystics, have as well. So it's a plausible position, and it's one that I have enjoyed distributing and thinking about and working in various contexts to try to make people less inhibited and more able to kind of talk about these things.
You mentioned major spiritualities or major religions and how they may look at this differently. One of the thoughts that I had, again, while I was reading your book was, how can we get the major spiritualities or major religions of the world to come together more so that they're focused on all humanity and they can take their various views of love, and rather than merely suggesting that if you adhere to our particular set of beliefs, then you get our love. How can we bring them together so that we can focus on the fact that there is one universal love that we can all grasp?
Well, that's a big question, and it's an important one. I think that the most thoughtful adherents of all these spiritual traditions would acknowledge just exactly what you said. And they recognize that there's a lot of cultural and historical egoism that gets wrapped up with this particular tradition, its particular symbols, and its particular language. But when you really come down to it, there isn't that much difference between what a Christian might call agape love, what a Jewish person might call chesed, or constant love, loyal love, what a Hindu would call ahimsa. I mean, these things are all really talking about something that's more than just a human emotional presence, but rather it's a sensibility that we have of something in the universe that is a higher form of love, and that thankfully we can participate in, which is really the definition, I would say, of spirituality, that we can actually participate in this sense of oneness with this original mind, and we can connect at these levels that are very profound. So that's what we need. We need more of it, because absolutely, sometimes people who advocate for this kind of vision have their lives cut short. Gandhi was assassinated by a fanatical Hindu. Rabin by a militant conservative Jew. Lincoln was killed by a Southern exclusivist. Martin Luther King was assassinated. You can just look at the history of the world and its politics. And when these individuals arise who have this vision of a one humanity, of a shared humanity, and they don't just mean it biologically, although we are interconnected biologically, but they mean it in a deeper sense too, that somehow our minds are part of one original mind, which is what Einstein more or less believed. He didn't think that our minds were just the product of our biology, but that there was an original mind, a mind before matter, as the Upanishads would put it. And we all have a little gift of that, a little bit of that within us. And so we are one, but we're also individual. But having that sense of oneness is the deepest aspect of spirituality. And when we lose that, we lose an awful lot.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the examples of the people that have tried to bring more people together, and unfortunately, people have to hear that. They have to be reminded of that, so that they understand that there are people out there that, because they benefit from divisiveness, it either brings them power, or it brings them financial wealth, or whatever it is that it brings them. That we have to understand that there are still people that do that, and we have to recognize it. Like you're pointing out, the people that have killed people, that have tried to teach more international or universal love. I don't know how we can continue that, because it seems like whenever we try to bring more of that in, it's as if the pendulum swings with the powers of divisiveness seem to be to come out of the woodwork even stronger.
Right, and we need to do an awful lot more. In God and Love on Route 80, toward the end, I talk about Chagall, who was a great Jewish mystic. The Chagall windows at the Art Institute in Chicago are second to none. And this was a man who had this blue angel dream when he was a youth in St. Petersburg, having run away from home in Moscow when he was 17. And just had this wonderful, eclectic, mystical sense of the value of the symbols of all religions. And so he was able to put those into his artwork. The Good Samaritan stained glass window, which is the whole back of the church in Tarrytown, New York, where the Rockefellers would go. He just had that ability to do that. And also Norman Rockwell, the Good Samaritan, the Golden Rule, where you have people from every conceivable tradition and every possible garb, every age, every color, every religious symbol, or no symbol, just the sort of secular existentialist rubbing his chin. So you get those incredibly iconic images, and that was 1961. That Golden Rule image made its way onto the cover of the Saturday Evening Post. No relation, by the way. But it had a huge impact, and that was before the Civil Rights Movement. So Rockwell was brilliant, and he was up there in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, talking with Erik Erikson and Reinhold Niebuhr, and trying to do with art and imagery what people couldn't quite seem to do as powerfully with words. So I think music, art, and many such things are all appropriate venues. We need to bring it all together and achieve what I would say is going to be a time when everyone will understand that there is an original mind, an original heart, and that there is an expression of that in pure, unlimited love, but experienced.
Right. Well, I think these are great examples of people that we've heard of that have taken risks, that have gone out to really try to push a positive agenda. What would be some things that you would suggest that everybody can do, that everybody, when they wake up in the morning, that they can do to help encourage these traditions, and to set up a consistency to a teaching of an overall universal love?
Well, yes. So there has to be a practice and a discipline to this. And in today's world, where so many people are, shall we say, more independently spiritual in their self definition, they come up with a lot of things themselves. I can say what I do, and it's worked for me. I've survived all these years in major academic medical centers where there are always sharks in the water, and it's never an easy environment, but I've always done well. And I do it well because I think I get up in the morning and I set the tone for my day. So in Why Good Things Happen for Good People, at the hub of this circle, of this wheel, I have love, defined as I offered you earlier. The happiness and security of another being as real to me as my own. But I then I start meditating and I think about the people I'm going to see over the course of the day, because I see a lot of people from early morning until late. Some of them are people in clinical situations, colleagues, students, you name it. And I ask myself, well, okay, so I'm going to see this person in the early morning, and what do they really need? What expression of love do they need? Well, maybe they're struggling because they feel like they have been suffering due to something abusive. So they need compassion. They need a gentle curiosity, a gentle questioning, a gentle kindness, someone to listen to them and let them know that their suffering matters. So they need compassion. But somebody else, maybe they're having a hard time with a really important creative project, and they have really good reasons for this creative project, where they want to benefit some important constituency with a new medication, or just with a new way of treating people in the clinical setting. And they're working on this project, but they're not getting any place. So they need creativity. They need some insight. They need the conversation that helps to bring out their natural creative capacities. And people have all sorts of different needs. I was a friend of M. Scott Peck, who wrote a book called The Road Less Traveled years ago. He'd been a graduate in psychiatry of the Case Western Medical School, where I had taught for 20 years. So we used to correspond a lot. And we didn't like the word confrontation, because we knew that, one of the expressions of love can be helping people keep on track with their real better half, if you will, because there's a tendency to kind of veer off sometimes. And so a true friend, Aristotle would have agreed, a true friend is someone who can keep you true to your better self. So we came up with a new word, carefrontation.
Carefrontation.
Not confrontation, but carefrontation. And that's a chapter in Why Good Things Happen to Good People, carefrontation, because you're not trying to alienate a person. On the contrary, you're trying to hold them close, but to help them to see that they're needing to stay on their path. And so, simple helping can be an expression of love. Just if someone across the hallway here is having a hard time pulling things together with the telephone system, just doing a small helping activity is beneficial. I like mirth. Mirth to me is an expression of love. There's a certain kind of a foolishness. Dostoevsky wrote a book called The Idiot, and you can't be too heavy-handed or overwhelming if you're going to do this kind of work. You've got to have a lightness of being, as they say. You've got to be a little effervescent, and you've got to be ready to be challenged a bit, but without reacting. You have to respond mindfully, but not react. So that's all expressions of love. It's hard to talk about the word love in a lot of parts of our culture, because people think, what are you talking about? Love of chocolate, love of designer jeans, But the expressions, the manifestations of love on this wheel, then people can understand those things very, very easily, and it works quite well.
Yeah, as you were saying that, one of the statements that I use at times, because I like the fact that you have certain things that you think of, or certain words that fit, and I have a statement that I use that says, how can I be value added to you right now? Because I think many times we think that we know what somebody needs, and we think that we're helping. And I've actually, dealt with that when people, they go, we appreciate it if you'd let us do this and not help. So I tried to shift that into, well, how can I be value added? Because then they're defining what that help is. I'm just providing the love and the concern to be there for them.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of humility to love wisely.
Yeah, and when you mentioned about being, sort of effervescent sometimes, or I think sometimes just making somebody laugh. I know that comedian Craig Shoemaker has a nonprofit called Laughter Heals,
Mhm.
and that's what he focuses on. He said, this is what I'm good at. This is what I believe in, and he just goes to hospitals and makes people laugh, and recognizes that that's the healing that seems to work for them.
Yeah, in LA, Norman Cousins, psychoneuroimmunology, the whole study of laughter at UCLA and so forth, incredibly important in USC. So the nice thing about laughter is that even in 2 years, I've been in my offices and around the hospital every day for the last 2 years, despite all the pandemic, and I have used laughter very purposefully, never distastefully, but always in an uplifting way, in a kind of a cute way, talking with people over coffee or on the escalators. It makes such a difference. In a millisecond, you can completely reframe a person's attitude toward the world around them when they're feeling really diminished, when they're feeling tired out, like they want to quit nursing or whatever it might be. If you can manage to connect with them empathically and bring in laughter to their life, everything can change in it doesn't take a minute or even a second. It just takes a millisecond. And
Yeah,
that's the power of laughter.
yeah. No, I agree, and I think about um, the ability sometimes to just be silly, because I've talked about this with young people, about laughter, and they've said, well, but I'd be afraid that I'd make a fool of myself. And I go, actually, sometimes that's funny, you know.
It's
Sometimes,
important.
I'll try to make somebody laugh or try to make somebody smile, and realize that I just completely blew it. But I think the fact that you made the effort is enough that, however silly it might be, the fact that you made the effort still makes them smile, or still makes them laugh, even if it's a little bit at our own expense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, the other day I asked somebody at Panera's down on the hospital's first floor, um, what did the envelope say to the stamp? Stick with me, we'll go places. They just broke up, in laughter because, and they had been having a hard time clinically because it was, this has been a draining period of time for them. And I asked someone as well, what did the fish say when it swam into the wall? They didn't know. Damn. So I keep a pretty free flowing collection of things that I sometimes invent and sometimes I just find them here and there. But I really believe, not again in demeaning humor, especially in clinical settings. Sometimes you'll hear a team make a derisive comment about an obese patient within earshot of the door. Um, we had one student who heard that from a team, and um, he asked himself, do I even want to laugh? He said, I won't laugh. Will I smile? No. He just stood there, and a nurse approached him and said, I noticed how you handled yourself. That was great. Why don't you talk with the team, but diplomatically? So diplomatically he approached the team and he told them what his response was to that behavior. And they completely turned around and they appreciated his courage and his ability to do carefrontation. Okay.
Yes.
But this is what we need. We need healthy humor, and we need to realize its power.
All right. We are talking with Dr. Stephen G. Post. His latest book is called God and Love on Route 80. Stay with us. And when we come back, Stephen, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about volunteering. You talk about it in your book, as well as, I've seen it on some other writings that you've had. So let's talk about the importance of volunteering when we come back. You're listening to Answers Network.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and compassionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585, or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
And we're back. You're listening to Answers Network, and we are talking with Dr. Post. We are talking about everything that is good. I just don't even know how to explain it, except it is everything that is good, everything that leads us in the direction that is going to bring on greater health, greater happiness for everyone. And one of those areas that you talk about in your book is volunteering. You prescribe volunteering for greater health, happiness, resilience, and longevity. You even cite reports that volunteering can actually lower levels of inflammation, cholesterol, lower your body mass index, as well as for those with mental health issues such as depression, schizophrenia, that they're helped by volunteering as well. So how can we get more people to take advantage of the benefits of volunteering? It just seems like a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. Well, RX, it's good to be good. And that's something that the Institute has focused on since its founding now 21 years ago. And I've done a series of studies in different areas of illness, people with chronic back pain, people with chronic cardiac problems, people, caregivers, taking care of people with dementia, coming together to help other caregivers and support groups. There are so many cases. We have a wonderful project called Helping Others Live Sober, which is about adolescents in Cleveland. I'm a Clevelander. It's been 20 years at Case Western and raised our kids in Shaker Heights, Ohio. But certainly the 12-step programs, the 12th step is about helping other people with your problems. So you take on that role of being what they call a wounded healer. And in that, you find your own healing, your own fulfillment, your own gratification. And it's a very, very powerful tradition. So it's always good to be good. And that doesn't mean there aren't certain limitations to it. If you're already involved in a helping profession, like many of the nurses and doctors are here, you probably don't need to go out and volunteer. You probably need to put your feet up and try to get some rest. But for many people who have non-serving jobs, if you will, for just a couple of hours a week, they find what has been called a helper's high. They find a great deal of respite. When I got here from Stony Brook, from Cleveland to Stony Brook, it was 2008, and there had been an economic downturn. I'd written Why Good Things Happen to Good People, and it had gotten some attention. So I had a call from United Health, the managed care system, and they wanted to know, okay, so let's have a national survey and see if this is really true. So in the very beginning of 2010, they did a survey of 5,000 adult Americans, asking them, how much did you volunteer in the year 2008? And about 41% had volunteered, which is pretty high. And then they asked, how much did you volunteer? Well, on average, it was 100 hours a year. And if you want to, you can break it up and say, okay, maybe that's a couple of hours a week. So it's not a very high threshold. But then we asked, so did you feel healthier as a result? About 80% felt healthier. Did you feel happier? 90 some odd percent. Did you feel more resilient, more able to deal with losses and disappointments? Same kind of a finding. Did you find that your friendships were deeper? Yes, they had deeper friendships. Did you find that life was more meaningful? And it goes on. So this is an internal benefit that you get even without tit for tat, even without relying on a payback. There's just something internal about getting into that space of kindness and caring that makes a big, big difference. So we did an article on widows and widowers who had been happily married for many years, and now they're going through a period of grief and bereavement. We found that if they could self-report that they were helping people in their neighborhoods, volunteering or informally helping them, that they were getting through this period in a more lasting fashion and more quickly. So I got a call from the New York Society of Widows and Widowers. There is such a thing. They're having an annual meeting in New York. And so I gave this talk, and at the end, there was lots of time for Q&A. It was one of the big hotels in Manhattan. And there was a guy frantically waving his hands in the back of the room. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, I don't care what you say, buddy. I don't do nothing for nothing. And, you know, it was so sad because what kept him from realizing these benefits, which are mental and physical, and even with regard to some degree with longevity, what kept him from realizing that was his own idea that I don't do nothing for nothing. And that's a problem.
Well, and can be very lonely.
Can be very lonely, yeah. So the nice thing is that why good things happen to good people has had an impact. So about 4 years ago in the UK, in the National Health Service, they began something called social prescribing, which is really exciting. So the British government put about 50 million pounds into this, and every primary care clinic has a program where an individual helps connect patients with volunteer opportunities that they're excited by. They get to choose, they get to do the things that float their boat. They're taking on activities that they find valuable and meaningful. And this is a big success story. There also, the other month, we had a big conference on Zoom with the Canadian Red Cross, which is a big organization up there. Mm-hmm. And they want to get this going up in Canada too. So the idea here is that if you can make this a part of the clinical setting, you can probably help people recover in the long run.
Right, and it's a win-win because it works on both sides because both people are getting a benefit from it.
Yeah, they are. And you know, there are probably 12 studies now of older adults, and the ones who are engaged in volunteering. Again, it's not a huge threshold. It's on average, it's 3 or 4 hours a week for the older adults, and it's just an hour or two for the teenagers. Okay, mm-hmm. There's a study that came out of Vancouver where high schoolers who just spent 1 hour a week helping individuals in a way that they found meaningful, they were feeling less depressed, happier, and they also had the elimination of the biomarkers that are pretty good predictors of cardiac problems, especially earlier in life. And more young people who have been sedentary and so forth have that issue. So it doesn't matter what you're looking at. clinically, we have a group here called Mended Hearts, and these are folks who have had cardiac surgery, or they've had to deal with those incredibly elaborate contraptions for people who have chronic cardiac problems, which are not easy to manage. And what they do is they just get together every month in the heart unit in a beautiful conference room, and they talk about what they're doing in terms of visiting people in the greater Long Island community who have been newly diagnosed and are struggling, or visiting hospital patients and talking with them about how they got through this and how it changed their lives, in some cases a little bit for the better. So people find so much value in helping others.
Now, have you seen any correlation between the the huge increase in depression and unfortunately in suicide during this pandemic that would correlate to people not being out there either volunteering or being helped by volunteers? I mean, it seems logical, but is there any data that's been put together that would reinforce that?
Well, we actually have 3 studies that are under review in journals right now, looking at that very issue, including with medical students, because the medical students got here to Stony Brook at the beginning of the ones who came in at the beginning of the pandemic. And suddenly, they weren't having their normal social opportunities to form community. They were almost living in a matrix. You spend all that time zooming away and not really having tangible interactions with individuals, and you lose a lot. So, there was a struggle, and their solution to this, and it was their idea, was to really organize themselves to do volunteering. And that some of them would make phone calls to patients in certain categories. They would do artwork and deliver it to rooms. They did a lot of things. They would do things to support families of individuals who were suddenly surprised that a loved one was severely ill. So we measured that, and it turns out that actually the volunteering made a big difference. The people who volunteered were psychologically considerably better off than those who did not.
Now, does in this time in which, again, there's still people that are uncomfortable, around strangers and things like that, but different ways of giving, does giving money still have some of the same benefits as the face-to-face helping? Is there a way that they can still get that way?
Yeah, there is. So there's a wonderful neuroscientist named Jorge Moll, Moll, who's had a lab at the NIH for years and years and years. And he did this really amazing study. This is about 14 or 15 years ago. He asked exactly the same question you're asking, Alan. So he had people coming into his lab, and he hooked them up to PET scan devices, just the little sort of swimming bonnets with electrodes on them. Mm-hmm. And he would give them a menu of charities that they could select to give to. Now, this is in a laboratory environment, so it's somewhat artificial. There might be 20 charities, your alma mater high school, the Alzheimer's Association, whatever it could be. Mm-hmm. And when they get excited about a particular item, they would check a box next to that line. And the mesolimbic pathway, which is a deeply emotional part of the brain that doles out one of the 4 big happiness chemicals, that gets active. And they definitely showed a neurological engagement with that happiness part of the brain. And also the part of the brain that's associated with destructive emotions like bitterness, rumination, hostility, all those things that, if you leave them on for a long time in a protracted way, they can be very damaging because of stress hormones and the like. Right. But those things just shut down So it sort of gives new meaning to this idea that, well, perfect love casts out fear. I mean, the amygdala is running on high octane right now in our society. People are frightened of these viruses. They're frightened of being close to one another. They're frightened of a whole lot of things, and with good reason. And so when the amygdala is that turned on, which is to say that's where your these negative emotions are located, you've got a real problem socially, and then you're going to get suicides, and you're going to get despair, and you're going to get people who are at their wits' end and not sure they can survive. So I think one of the best things you can do is to get people involved in a somewhat organized way without putting themselves in danger in volunteering behaviors. Now, how you do that, there's a way to manage it that can be successful. I mean, you got to give people choice, and they should get together every month or so for coffee and or dinner and debrief a bit and talk about the meaning that they find in their activities. That helps a lot, so they can form new friendships and a new culture around this activity. So there's more to it than meets the eye, and you don't want to do it poorly, so that people become despondent, having tried it and not found it working. But I think it's a very important item, and I think in the future, medicine is really going to take advantage of this, and more so. I think that what's going on in the UK and what I think is going to be happening in Canada, possibly at the Cleveland Clinic at some point, I don't know, some discussion there. I think this is great.
All right. We have some questions that have come in either through instant message or through email. And again, I want to thank those that take the time to do this. Oftentimes it's teachers or people who are working in the middle of the day. They'll send some of them in the night before, or some of them come in like this during the show. And again, I just want to take the time to thank those people. We really appreciate you sending these in. And I know that some people say that they won't be able to listen live, but that they'll tune in later and listen to be able to get the answer. So that's always nice. This first one reads, having studied quantum physics since the early 2000s, I have witnessed inexplicable synchronicities to have occurred that defied logic. I feel that we get so preoccupied with life that turning into this phenomenon is much rarer than it should be. Excuse me. I love the title of your book, as it seems to be describing what many people are experiencing these days, an awakening to a deeper meaning of life. I have ordered your book and very much looking forward to diving in. What is your belief about synchronicities? This is from Vera in Florida.
Hi, Vera in Florida. In my opinion, synchronicity is at the very heart of spirituality. And in fact, Route 80, you wonder why Route 80 begins with a dream I had as a high school kid. And I actually went out on Route 80 and I had the most unbelievable experience of synchronicity, really in fulfillment of a premonitional dream. So I'm a big believer in synchronicity, which really, as Carl Jung described it, has to do with those unbelievably uncanny moments when you encounter, in sometimes a moment of real desperate need, just the perfect person at the perfect time in the perfect place who says just exactly the right thing. And it changes your life. And you don't believe it can be attributed to chance, to just luck, Mm-hmm. I mean, Aristotle would have said, well, it was just luck. But there's something deeper to it. And this really, can I talk about the dream a little bit, Alan?
Well, yeah, please. But I just glanced up and saw that we've got about 3 minutes, and I do have a couple more quick questions to throw in.
Okay, well, let's do that. But yeah, absolutely. So synchronicity is at the heart of an awful lot of spirituality, and that feeling that somehow we are more cherished in this universe than we fully realize.
And in fact, what would be good is that what would be the website that someone can go to if they want to get more information like you're talking about now?
Well, just Stephen with a PH, StephenGpost.com.
Okay.
And the
So,
other one would be unlimitedloveinstitute.org.
all right. And for those of you that are driving, we'll make sure that we have those on our website, the answers.network website, so that you can pull those up if you want to get maybe some answers that are a little more in depth. So this next question reads, I have gone through a great deal of anxiety and depression the last 2 years and was placed on medication that really did not feel good, that I did not feel good taking it. My therapist recommended that I take a few minutes each day to write down the things and people I am grateful for. I follow up this process by actually calling and telling them how I felt as well. I'm about 6 months into the process, and every day that passes, the depression is less and less. Your statement that the science and spirituality need to converge is so important. Can you can you talk a bit more about your thoughts on this? And this is from Bernie in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Hi, Bernie in Albuquerque. Hey, so gratitude. Let me tell you, I one of the nice things in my life, I was on the board of the National Institute for Healthcare Research. And Dave Larson, who was the president, and I actually gave a job to a wonderful young guy who just gotten his PhD, Michael McCullough, who developed all the initial gratitude scales. And he and Bob Emmons at UC Davis, who wrote a best-selling book called Thanks, were really the pioneers in this whole field. But what they figured with adolescents, for example, if adolescents just take even a half an hour a week and write a little reflective journal on the several things they're most grateful for, after about a 6 or 8 week period, it really does change their emotional state. It doesn't happen immediately, but over time, if they keep at it, it can be very life-changing. And so when you make a phone call to individuals and you express gratitude for something or other, and you connect with them at the level of gratitude and appreciative inquiry, it's very beneficial to you, and it does lower depression. In fact, this is one of the reasons why, if you look at AA, people who have addiction disorders, Narcotics Anonymous and so forth, they will actually have a reduction in depression as they get engaged in helping other people who face their challenges.
Yep.
There's no question, gratitude is a very, very healthy emotional state.
Could not agree more. Stephen, I got to tell you, I wish we had another hour. I am loving this. In fact, I'd love to give you a call, off the air, maybe see about how soon we can get you back on.
Sure.
But one question, just real quick, is what can I do to help the Institute? What can any of the listeners do to help the Institute? What can we do that gives you a greater platform to be able to get this word out to more people?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, why good things happen to good people is still a very worthwhile book, and God and Love on Route 80, the subtitle, The Hidden Meaning of Human Connection, which is your synchronicity. That's important too. So if you have some interest in reading one of these books, just go ahead and order it. But also you can sign up to a newsletter on the Institute website or my own website. And we correspond, we send something out every month. That's usually pretty interesting. And then if you like, at the end of the year, if you indicate, we can send out a little request letter.
Okay.
That's about it.
It is great. I'm so thankful you took the time to come on. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it, and anything that we can do to help you reach more people. That's what this show is about, is being able to take someone like yourself and get it out to as many people as possible. To me, that's how we are all going to make a positive difference in the world.
Yeah, every bit helps, and everybody has the same calling, which is to bring us together in this kind of one world of peace and synchronicity all the way, recognizing the power of that. So great. You do a nice job, Alan. Thanks so much, and thank you to your listeners.
All right. And for everybody out there, please be with us next Monday when we're joined by Erica Elliott to discuss her amazing new book, Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert, Her Life Amongst the Navajo People. And please visit our archives of past interviews at answers.network, or you can subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, and so many more. And if there's a platform you listen to and they don't have our show, tell them you want it. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review. It helps us reach more people, and I want you to know we greatly appreciate it. Next time you're on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, please remember, stop by our page, check out some of our latest posts. If you like them, please like us and spread the word. This is how we can make a positive difference in the world together. And to take the line that we just got from our guest, be good human beings and use some carefrontation today. So thank you, and we'll be with you next week. Have a good day.
Hello, I'm Marty Cove. You might remember me from roles such as Sensei in the Karate Kid films. I've done over 100 films and countless stunts in my career, and I've always given 100%. With the damage done to my body over time, I needed to find relief from my chronic pain. My passion for health and fitness drove me to find a natural way to combat muscle pain. Teaming up with doctors, detectives, and a compounding pharmacist, we've created Marty's Cobra Cove Ultra Strength CBD Cream. It's the only thing that has been strong enough to knock out my pain, and fast. Honestly, you may have tried the rest, but it's time to try the best. It's legal, it's safe, and 100% effective. Show your pain no mercy. Go to www.martyscobracove.com.
You're listening to Answers Network with Alan Cardoza, only on LA Talk Radio.